Hey, what's up, Colorado Realtors? I'm Scott Peterson. Thank you for joining me for another edition of Legal Bites. This Legal Bites, friends, is the second in a series that I'm doing on commission position statements. And we're going to touch on CP-3, commission position statement number 3. If you haven't watched CP-2, which was released before, then go back and watch that before you watch this, because they really do kind of tie into each other in a good way. Unless you're just frankly curious about RESPA and referral fees, which is what this one's based on. But it does help to set the table for this entire topic by watching CP2 before you watch CP3. But here we have it. And I'm sorry, I know this is, as I'm doing this as a series now, I know you guys, it's hard to sleep, you know. You watch like the last version on CP2 and you know that CP3 is coming and you know this is a series. You're going to get a follow-up to the last. It's like, you know, some of you guys with Stranger Things, or my friend Monica, you know, she can't stop watching and referring to Shogun, her favorite series of all time. And she's talking now about the Thornburgs, which is, you know, really dating her at this point. But nonetheless, I'm empathetic because I know how you guys hang on the edge of your seats for these. But hey, we've got to have content to push out, and we've got to keep you dangling on the edge of your seat. I don't want you canceling your car YouTube page subscription and walking away unless you're waiting for the next in a series. So anyhow, CP3 is RESPA and referral fees. All right. So I talked a lot about referral fees in the last version. In this one, I've got to talk about the RESPA implications of things. So we know RESPA, the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, that is federal law. All right, and that is now enforced by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And it applies in situations where it is a residential property, and in the purchase of that property, there is a federally related mortgage loan involved. Federally related mortgage loan is very broad. That's going to be most any conventional lender, Fannie, Freddie, certainly FHA, VA, pretty much any loan type in most cases, unless it's like a secondary market loan or a friends and neighbor kind of personal loan, something like that. But if it's a federally guaranteed or federally related mortgage loan, then RESPA applies on a residential property. So if that's the starting point, then we know that federal law applies. And RESPA is generally obsessed with this concept of not unnecessarily increasing the cost of a settlement service, okay, or a settlement in general. And so picture it like this. This is the thinking of RESPA, federal law, as it relates to paying referral fees to unlicensed individuals, all right? We know that RESPA prohibits any referral fee payment to unlicensed individuals because it unnecessarily increases the cost of a settlement service. Think about it like this. Let's say that you as a broker receive a commission for working with a buyer of $10,000 as your cooperating commission because you represented a buyer in closing on a transaction. Receive a $10,000 commission, and you've agreed to pay an unlicensed individual a referral fee of 20%. So you're going to turn around and give $2,000 of your $10,000 to an unlicensed individual. Well, we know, and RESPA knows, that that unlicensed individual is not capable of performing any brokerage functions. They can't add any value to the transaction. And so, therefore, if you're receiving 10 and turning around and giving 2 to somebody who, by definition, because they're unlicensed, isn't able to perform any brokerage functions or add any value to the transaction, then you're essentially saying, hey, my brokerage functions, my licensed functions were only worth 8. Otherwise, I wouldn't have given away 2, right? And so that's the concept. They're saying that in that case, in my example, you've unnecessarily increased the cost of a settlement service by $2,000. So that's the concept behind RESPA and why they specifically preclude any referral fees to unlicensed individuals, okay, under any situations, as well as no kickbacks. That's why, you know, if you refer, you know, your seller or buyer to a title company, another settlement service provider, the title company can't turn around and kick you back a bunch of fees or funds, and that's both under state and federal law as it relates to title specifically, but lenders would be the same thing. Any settlement service provider is not allowed to exchange or give kickbacks or referral fees to somebody for sending them business because, again, all of that unnecessarily increases the cost of a settlement event. And that is anything of value. So it's not just, you know, a specific dollar amount or percentage, any of those things. It is illegal to give or receive anything of value to an unlicensed individual in connection with a settlement event. So, and that is for settlement service providers. And that's a broad definition. That is anybody in connection with the actual transaction. That would be home inspectors. It could be a contractor who's been engaged to, or who's being engaged to perform inspection resolution kind of items on a property. Anybody that's really providing any services whatsoever for the purposes of that closing or that settlement is considered a settlement service provider, and this all applies. Then you get into not settlement service providers, something after a transaction. I know like sometimes alarm companies will agree to give, you know, some $50 or something to you if you refer your buyer to them. Something that is post-closing, technically that wouldn't be a settlement service provider, maybe a landscaping company, something like that. That wouldn't necessarily be a settlement service provider, so the RESPA considerations wouldn't apply. But remember, because you're a broker, you would have to disclose that compensation that you're receiving from a third party that you're making a referral to. So understand that distinction between the big broad category of people that would be settlement service providers within a transaction, and then those may be post-closing service providers that may provide incentives for introducing them to business. Disclosure is required even if it wouldn't necessarily be a RESPA violation. There's two final points that I want to make on this issue, and I get this a lot on the hotline. For some reason, everybody likes to say, oh, they have their license on ice. That means like, I think, well, I know they're referring to the fact that their license is inactive. They were active at some point, their license is inactive, can I pay them a referral fee? Here's the deal. In order to pay an inactive individual a referral fee, they needed to be licensed at the time they made the referral, okay? Or they needed to be actively licensed at the time they made the referral. So if they were inactive at the time they made the referral, no go under RESPA. If they were active at the time they made the referral and then they put their license on ice, I just love that term. I don't know why. It's so common that people use, but so they were active when they made the referral and then they went inactive for whatever reason, then referral, it's compliant with RESPA. A referral fee would be just fine. But if they weren't active when they made the referral to begin with, then they really can't participate in any way with any referral fees if RESPA applies, okay? And in CP-2, I talked about what Colorado law is. So if it's a cash deal, a commercial deal, maybe a land deal, there's no residential component to it, then Colorado law is where you're going to look first. But if it's a residential property and there's a loan involved, RESPA is going to need to be looked to first in this case. And the final point I want to make is referral fees, as we know, are paid brokerage firm to brokerage firm. These are not paid between individuals or broker associates directly. These are brokerage firm to brokerage firm, all referral fees. So make sure you keep that in mind as you're going through this as well. Stay tuned. I'll be coming back with, I'm not going to do all 29 commission position statements, but I'm going to probably do 8 or 10, maybe 12, depending on kind of the uptake we get on this. And in the meantime, if you guys are looking at these and they're linked below, right here, you can click down there somewhere. It'll take you to the Division of Real Estate's website. If you're looking at these, you have questions, feel free to call the hotline. We're always available between 9 and 12 and 1 and 4 Monday through Friday, except for holidays. And love to hear from you there. So holler if you have questions. Otherwise, we will see you on the next edition of Legal Bites. Thanks so much.